let's watch the German elections. The Germans. Here you go. I'm throwing you a fucking bone, yeah. That's right. The center-left party won a narrow victory against the Christian Democrats, the Conservative Party, in the German elections. Angela Merkel is no longer in charge. That is right. Sehr good. Now a coalition government needs to be built in Germany, in Deutschland. This is true. This is true. Communists won in the largest, Österreich's second largest city, in Graz, Austria. The Communist Party romped to victory for the first time in history. Jacobin spoke to the winning candidates about how the party built a red fortress in the city. Now, of course, Angela Merkel, by American standards, by Americanish standards, is like a radical communist. Yeah. I mean, they're, of course, still very, very neoliberal. But having said that, by the German material conditions, the situation in Germany is a lot better than the situation in America. So just remember that, okay?
Hello, a very warm welcome from Berlin, where the leaders of Germany's two main parties are both claiming the right to govern after this unpredictable election race. But with the centre-left SPD emerging as the single biggest party, they've been quick to press home their advantage. In just the last hour, their candidate for Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, has been pushing the case to be the only party worthy of forming a coalition. Their lead over the centre-right Christian Democrats, that's the party of Angela Merkel, may be a slim one, but this is a party, the CDU-CSU bloc, which has just been handed its worst ever result in a national election. Now, according to the German Electoral Commission, the figures are like this. The centre-left SPD are on 25.7% of the vote. The centre-right Conservatives, that's CDU and CSU combined, on 24.1%. So to form a majority...
While that the fucking AfD, which is the Nazi party, okay, it's the modern Nazi party, but because of Germany's like hate crime, hate speech laws, they can't just like wave the Nazi flag. Those guys got more seats than the left.
Of seats in the parliament, either side would need at least two partners. And here the Greens and the Liberal Free Democrats become the kingmakers, if you like, in coalition negotiations. Our Europe correspondent Nick Beake has this report.
Oh, also the Greens are the leftist party as well, for the record, in Germany. Germany has a multi-party system, so obviously, here, let's look at the German parties real quick. For those of you who are uninitiated, I'm not super familiar with it either, obviously, but we will be looking at the 2021 German Bundestag election results right now. But before we get to the election results, here's the political parties in Germany. Okay, very good, very good. Current parties. You have the Social Democratic Party, okay, the SPD. They are center-left, okay? They are social democracy and pro-Europeanism. You have the CDU, the Christian Democratic Union of Germany, okay? And previously led by Angela Merkel. Now, they believe in Christian democracy, liberal conservatism, and pro-Europeanism, the center-right. You have the Christian Social Union in Bavaria. Then you have the Alliance 90s, the Green Party, Grüne, all right? That's right. They are advocates for green politics and pro-Europeanism. And from what I understand, they've been able to effectively change the dynamic and the arguments in Germany. Okay? To adopting green policies. Okay? So that's very good. Very good. They're good, yeah. And then you have the Freie Demokraten Party. The Free Democratic Party, FDP, liberalism, classical liberalism. Then you have the Alternative für Deutschland, the AfD, okay? And that is German nationalism and right-wing populism. Now, the the German nationalism is you know, last time the Germans did the nationalism, it didn't turn out too good for Germany nor for the rest of the world. You know, it's not good. It's not good at all. That's right. The only alternative is you know, going back to the Nazi party. MPD were straight up Nazis and prohibited. It's more complicated with AFD, but they do have some Nazis among them. Now, the AFD is the closest thing that Germany has to the American Republican Party. I would say that, like, even the CDU, the Christian Democratic Union of Germany, the Christian Democratic Party, they are not even like, I mean, they say liberal conservatism, but like they're neoliberals. But even given the current way that the social democratic process works in Germany, even then they're like not as conservative from an economics point of view as conservative as the Democratic Party, but they kind of are like the Democratic Party, the way that the Democratic Party carries itself. At least they are conservative Democrats. Then you have the Linke, okay, the left. That's right, and they believe in democratic socialism and left-wing populism. That's right. And then you have a bunch of other shit. I don't know what the fuck any of this stuff is, to be honest. There's a Piratenpartei Deutschland, which is funny. Their politics are pirate politics. What the fuck is that? I feel like this is how Germans do jokes. Like I'm assuming that this is like, what is this York you say? I've never heard of it. So we decided to do the little humor, you know, in the form of, you know, Piratenpartei Deutschland. Yeah, right. That is how we do it. This also must be a joke. The Ecological Democratic Party, Ökologische Demokratische Partei, ÖDP, which is green conservatism. There are lots of pirate parties around Europe. They're all pretty legit. It's about digital rights. Oh, okay. What is this? Die Partei? Party für Arbeit, Rechtsstaat, Tierschutz, Elitenförderung und Basisdemokratische Initiative. And that's the satire party. And they are apolitical. Very good. It's such a troll. It's so funny. It's so funny. It's very good, yeah. Very good. Okay, let's keep going.
After a Sunday of election drama, they partied into the night. But today, Germans are waking up with no clear idea of how their new government will take shape. Olaf Scholz says the people have chosen him to lead them, but he wasn't ready to announce his arrival on the international stage just yet.
So have you got 10 seconds for the BBC? Just a message. Do you think you'll be sitting next to Boris Johnson soon, sir?
Although the Social Democrat candidate says he should lead the next coalition.
It's certainly going to be a long night, but it's also certain that many German citizens voted Social Democrat because they want a change in government and because they want their next chancellor to be called Olaf Scholz.
At the Conservative headquarters, less happy faces. Disappointment that Angela Merkel's party had not done better. Yet the CDU candidate who wants to succeed her as Chancellor argued he could still run the country.
We had 16 years in Germany with Angela Merkel as Chancellor, and this is why we will try everything to form a government under the leadership of the CDU-CSU union.
For the Greens, they were celebrating a record result, but not as good as they hoped it could have been 6 months ago. But they and the pro-business Liberals will now play a key role in the business of trying to build a coalition.
We wanted more. We didn't achieve that, partly because of our own mistakes at the beginning of the campaign, my own mistakes. This time it wasn't enough, but the party has a mission for the future.
Well, we were warned that it would be a long, long night, and it certainly proved to be that way. But with every hour that's passed and more results have come in, they've grown in optimism here at the Social Democrats' headquarters. But they know the next phase ahead will not be straightforward.
You're here with us.
After 16 years of Merkel, Germans have sent a message at the ballot box. The trouble is, it's not exactly clear what it was and what it will mean for the country and further afield. Nick Beak, BBC News, Berlin.
Well, the SPD are wasting no time in putting their case forward to try and really gain the high ground, I think, in terms of looking towards a coalition government. I'm joined now by our Berlin correspondent, Damien McGuinness. Damien, just in the last few minutes, Olaf Scholz saying the Conservatives belong in opposition, and he has a rationale as to why he feels that he's the one to sort of lead the game now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the story we're looking at this morning, David, is 3 winners, 3 losers. So the 3 winners are centre-left SPD, that's Olaf Scholz, who was just speaking now, saying that he's won the election. That's what the polls show, that's what the results show, just by, a very small margin. The other two winners are the 2 smaller parties, Greens and Liberals. We'll talk about them in a minute. But if you look at the losers, the big loser of the night is the leader of the Christian Democrats, Armin Laschet, the Conservative leader. Now, he's done so badly because of how he's managed the campaign, but also he lacks the backing of his party and the population. His personal ratings are catastrophic. So he's not really wanted by many of his party, nor by the members, and it seems not by the electorate as well. In theory, he could still try and push for a coalition government. That's what he wants to do. In reality, if he hasn't got the backing of his party, and if people don't think he's a good fit anyway within the population, he hasn't...
Isn't it nice watching non-insane politics? No, it's boring as fuck. Like, actually, kind of boring. Not even kind of boring. It's like really boring. Chud. How do you say stop the count in German? I mean, it would be better if America had the system of 100,000%. You know what I mean? I'm an advocate for it. But also at the same time, like, the SPD are not a left-wing party, though. No, I understand that. I get that. SPD is a social democratic party, and social democratic parties in Europe or all around Europe for the most part. I mean, it depends on what country you're looking at, but like in a lot of countries, social democratic parties are center-left. They're literally not like... They're not leftist at all. There are actual leftist parties. There's communist fucking parties and shit. You know what I mean? So, I will be talking about Berlin seizing housing in a second, which doesn't even matter.
He hasn't got much of a mandate. He might talk tough right now, but I think it would be a tough fight for him to argue to people that he really is the one to form the next coalition.
It's interesting, isn't it? Some of the senior figures within that party already publicly saying, no, it can't be Laschet. So they're already looking to move on. And yet, Damien, when you look at the Free Democrats and the Greens, the leader of the Free Democrats has said, well, to be honest, I would sooner work with the CDU. So how does that all piece together?
Yeah, so the Liberals are pro-market, they are low-tax, pro-business. So their natural fit would be with a Conservative coalition. 4 years ago, that's where they were going. That was the big story with the Conservatives. Those coalition talks failed. The reason why the Liberals are now talking more openly, and yesterday they did an incredible thing by already saying we're going to talk to the Greens. That's unheard of, that the smaller junior parties would start saying, OK, this is the way we're going in coalition talks. Usually it'd be the winner that would open those negotiations. So that is unusual. The Greens have said likewise. That's because they know where the numbers have fallen, and the numbers have fallen to a centre-left-led governing coalition. And what we're talking about now is some very pragmatic negotiations. Already this morning...
SBD in the 20s literally set up right-wing paramilitary groups out to shoot down a communist uprising. Yes, I'm familiar with the history of it. I know. Also, it's not the fucking 20s anymore, and the SBD is like, you know, the SBD itself isn't even fucking as even leftist as they were back then in some ways. So literally 100 years ago, they would do it again. Okay. This is a positive result for the left. Well, as far as the Green Party goes, it's like a center left coalition. It's now going to be from what I understand, it's going to be a fucking center left coalition. So that's not, I mean, it's a better off overall than the Christian Democratic Union. But like, Green Party's based, SPD isn't, both aren't socialists. Yes, I know. So here's the thing. Like, shit, even in the form of like referendums or ballot measures, happens in Germany in a way that like you could not even ever imagine. And I'm going to talk about that after this video is over, but you guys are getting me to talk about it now. Like the property seizure provision or whatever the fuck it's called in Germany that was voted in, where in Berlin, the people of Berlin voted in favor of a measure that would seize more than 200,000 units and basically expropriate 200,000 plus units and take them off the hands of private ownership and give it to the government for social housing. So that is already being fought against. It's non-binding, so it doesn't really mean that it's going to happen. But I'm talking about it because I want you to comprehend like where the attitudes are. Like this is what the people, this is the way that people are operating. This is what they believe in. Like but they will be seized like land for building roads, which means bought from the owners at market rate. Yeah. Yeah, of course, dude. Okay. Guys, expropriation in 2021 in a Western liberal capitalist country is never going to be at the barrel of a fucking gun for free. Okay. If you think that, you're crazy. And even then it's probably not going to happen. From what I understand, it's likely to be struck down as unconstitutional or never implemented in general. Wait, so in Berlin, did SPD win in Berlin? Or I don't even know how that works. Like, yeah, SPD candidate Franziska Giffey won the Berlin mayoral race. I'm fucking butchering her name, but I don't think she is on board with. From what I understand, I don't think she's a bit of a lib, and I don't think she will go forward with said measure. SPD is against the expropriation. Green is a maybe, and the left party is a yes. Yeah, so it's most likely not going to happen. So, like, while it sounds great, and the idea that, like, you could even put a ballot measure that, a ballot measure for, expropriation is insane. It's insanely leftist. It's most likely not going to happen. She cheated on her dissertation and got her PhD retracted? That's funny. The political will is there and change will come from it. It's not America. Yeah. Maybe. I hope. Are you still pro green card on COVID? What the fuck does that mean? Am I for a vaccine passport? Yes. Even the threat of a vaccine passport alone should get a lot of people to go get vaccinated. So have you ever visited Germany? Yes, many times. I've been to Berlin a bunch. I've also been to Austria once when I was very young. I don't know enough about Die Linke, so I can't speak on it. The leftist party. Like, I don't know. Die Linke is already ruminating on its failure. They really fucked up and people did not attach to the referendum. From what I've seen, and it's very limited, I will admit, it is very fucking limited. They seem to be like kind of disorganized. Not great funds, kind of disorganized, nowhere near as powerful as like any of the center left parties, obviously, and like not doing a very good job with I mean, as some people are saying in the chat, they didn't even attach themselves to the fucking popular ballot, the popular measure that passed, that was voted in, even though they were the only fucking party that was in favor of it. Like, unconditionally in favor of it. So that's like a gigantic fucking L, dude. Hold this L, you know? Die Linke is a mess of socialists, old Stalinists, and everything else that's leftist. I mean, that's... They are. 600k voters switched from Linke to SPD. Sag. Jesus Christ. The left party in Germany has a bit of a stigma, still being connected to the old DDR and Eastern communism, so they're made a bit of a scarecrow. That makes sense. So,
in the media, but the leaders of the Liberals and the Greens were saying, okay, we're going to be pragmatic, we're going to see what direction we as a team can move forward. And these two parties on the surface,
like, if you're operating a democratic socialist coalition, like every single Marxist Leninist that is if they're anti-electoralist, which is ironic, should shut the fuck up. Like, the organization should be offered to, in Germany, I wouldn't say they're social democrats because they're democratic socialists, right? Because the Social Democratic Party is already liberal. So in Germany, in a country like Germany, if you have a leftist party and you've built a coalition of like leftist, coalition of like leftist fucking politicians, a multitude of different seasonings and flavors of leftism, then if you're a Stalinist, you shut the fuck up. You just take a back seat. Like, there's no reason for you to have any sort of fucking sort of say on the matter, because like, you're not gonna fucking win. You know what I mean? We're not winning shit with that kind of attitude. Their messaging is atrocious. They didn't promote the best climate plan and was undecided on corona and vaccines. They even lost 110k to AFD. Jesus fucking Christ, dude.
they seem very different, one high tax, one low tax. In reality, they've been talking behind the scenes for years. They have set up this group which has been meeting for cocktails in a West Berlin bar since the last collapse of those talks between the two to figure out where they can have a meeting of minds. And they do have issues where they come together. They want modernization, they want digitalization. They're both open to migration, for example. So they have a lot of similarities, and it's those similarities they're going to try and focus on, really, I think.
Okay, well, the SPD have made the first move on the chessboard, it would seem. We perhaps wait to see if Armin Laschet of the CDU makes the second move, possibly a defensive one, but the coalition talks.
This is like insane, by the way. That's absolutely insane. Are you fucking kidding me, dude? So they're the only fucking party that had 110,000 members switch over to the AFD, where the AFD hemorrhaged. What is this, like the Jimmy Dore shit? The link of the AFD votes, which is how libs see Bernie bros voting for Trump in 2016. The left always lost the most votes to AFD because they battle on the same Bundesländer to the east. Oh. They are the only party that exclusively lost votes. Linke lost votes to every party, so it looks worse than it is. Okay. I love that, though. This is misleading. No, they're like perennial. They're really good at losing. They're like gigantic losers. So they technically lost to every party. I love that. By the way, the one thing I will say is that this doesn't mean that like these guys are fucking Nazis and that's why they voted for the AFD. It just means that in that district, or where their battlegrounds are, AFD is a stronghold and they're constantly duking it out with AFD. So people are voting for either or. But ultimately, that is entirely on the left and its messaging problem, especially when, if you don't have a fucking, like I just by what people have told me so far about the Lincoln not having like adequate COVID takes, or not having like a corona strategy. If that is true, and I don't know if it is, that would mean that, yeah, people are gonna fucking gravitate towards a party that does have a COVID take that is strong, because we're dumb as fuck. Humans are dumb as fuck. Okay? Humans are dumb as fuck. And it reminds me of Corbyn's wishy-washy attitude. It reminds me of Corbyn's wishy-washy attitude on Brexit, where he was stuck between a rock and a hard place, where on the one side, he didn't want to fucking take a strong stance on Brexit, but on the other side, he had to maintain like younger votes in urban areas. Like older Labour voters in northern regions were pro-Brexit, and younger voting blocks in London were anti-Brexit. So he was, I mean, this is incredibly reductive, but basically he couldn't take a fucking point. And I said this even back then. I was like, listen, a good leader takes a strong position no matter what, and then advocates for it and changes people's minds. And Corbyn refused to do that.